Okay, welcome back to members of 121 Community Church in Grapevine, Texas. Our ongoing study in metaphysics by Borden Parker Bown, dated 1882. We're going to take a look at the nature of time, pages 217 to 242. And let's begin by taking a look at block 1 and take a look at time as measure, law, and coordinates. And Bown tells us that history in time is our posited concept. We grasp the infinite in spatial relation as sui generis. Time, however, does not give us a simple temporal image. Time is perceived as a spatial before and after. Time cannot exist as independent of being, and time is referenced to an objective presence and a singular consciousness. Under law, change depends on the interaction of things, and time is the subjective principle for change of becoming. Phenomena must fall under the law of time when we grasp those phenomena. And as coordinates of past and future, time is the subjective principle of change. It supplies the coordinates of past and future. The conditioning of events is expressed as past and future. So it is a subjective principle of change, says Bown. So it's enclosed within being, and it is a subjective principle of change, one of the subjective principles of the concept of being itself. Let's take a look at block 2 and take a look at the concrete sequence. And under schema, relation in thought is expressed as temporal sequence. Logically, we resolve dynamic sequence into temporal sequence. It becomes a product of our observing mind. Now, change is a fact of reality, and time cannot be independent of reality. Objectively, being is passing from state unto state. So, under this aspect of foundation and form, change into new state is the foundation of time. Time equals the form of concrete change. Change occurs first, followed by its temporal form, which constitutes its reality. So it is understood as this an internal principle of being. And that leads us to block 3. We're going to take a look at time as real within being. Time exists within being to constitute its reality. Time is identified with change. Unity of space depends on a common object, and unity of time, says Bown, exists for each individual consciousness, but is based on a singular common process. The one, infinite reality, constitutes the coexistence of thinking beings, and that establishes a common time-piece idea. The infinite process of being regulates all individual time estimates. So under time and time estimates, we posit the notion of a unity of time. Actual world process is a base reality fact. Process founds all time measuring. So the direction of all activity grounds all of the laws of the mind, and our actual laws of mind express the modes of action, and those laws are the formal, the logical, and the personalistic. These laws become posited as necessities of the real. Now, time as notion becomes an abstract concept for the order of becoming. This notion of time exists within being itself. Therefore, in conclusion, Bown says time and space are both internal principles of being, expressing the order of becoming, and they are constituted in this singular process. So it is very much, again, referencing the singularity of process that becomes our objective reference. This sequence becomes the objective reference for our notion of time, which is a subjective internal principle, internal to the concept of being. It cannot have a separate reality outside of being. And this, of course, coordinates with the previous lesson we just had on space, which also was enclosed within being for Bown. It cannot have separate identity outside of the concept of being, outside of the infinite being. Infinite being encloses time and space. But this gives us the specific content for his discussion of the concept of time. It does fall in being understood as a subjective principle for change. It's the concept, or it's the principle for articulating the change of becoming, the change in the process of becoming. And it does fall under the movement of this change of becoming as reality moves from state unto state. As the infinite is expressed in the presence of a spatial unity of movement from state unto state. But that change is given temporal form, and that temporal form constitutes the reality of the concept of time. That is the temporal form of this movement from concretion to concretion of the infinite imprinting finitude. And it leads to his conclusion that time and space are both internal principles of being. So it wasn't a very large chapter, just a few pages, 217 to 242, but it did give us a significant complement to the previous lesson on the notion of space, which was given quite a few more pages. But this rounds out his discussion of the internal principles of the concept of being. We understand time and space, which generally are applied to finitude, as being internal to infinity, internal to the infinite being. And that becomes important when understanding Bound's cosmology, and of course, as we understood in previous lessons, it also reflects Edgar Sheffield Brightman's cosmology and theology. So we'll get great additional comment to round out the discussion of space and time, and it's a very, very brief lesson this time. It covers pages 217 to 242, and that will round out our discussion of space and time within Borden Parker Bound's section on cosmology. And we'll pick up with the next chapter, which will begin on page 243.